Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. This is Kerry Lutz, 1230 WBZT. And it's time, of course, for another Triple Lutz report. This is episode 315. The date is October 24th, 2013. First up, talking about Detroit. Bankruptcy is continuing on unabated. However, a couple little bumps in the road. They're going to have a trial. And the trial basically, it's a Chapter 9 proceeding. So the hearing is going to take place to determine the legality of the filing. And what's required is that the court will have to find that the city negotiated in good faith with its creditors to try to arrive at a settlement prior to filing for Chapter 9. The other finding is that there must be insolvency, and I don't think anybody can argue about the fact that Detroit's insolvent unless somehow they come up with the fact that the art collection at the Detroit Institute of Art is somehow worth $100 billion, and they can sell it off and pay off all their debts, and everyone will live happily ever after, which just is not going to happen. Let's face the facts. Maybe it's worth several billion, probably not going to sell off the art collection anyway. I think they should sell it off to some foundations who will maintain the museum in the city of Detroit. You know, cities should not be in the business of running museums. They do a god-awful job. Probably half the art gets stolen anyway and substituted with fakes. Who would know it other than an art expert? They don't know how to run anything. The government can't run anything properly. They just keep getting worse and worse and worse. I mean, that's the way it works here. And Obamacare, I don't want to go into that. That's for the next portion of the commentary, but you know what's going on. Detroit will win this. Kevyn Orr, the presumption is in favor of the city, that their filing for bankruptcy was legitimate, was legal, and that they went through the necessary steps. I mean, look, Orr is a bright guy. I don't remember the law firm that he worked for. Big law firm, big elitist law firm. The guy knows what he's doing. They're paying these lawyers $500, $750, $1,250 an hour. Believe me, they're not getting tossed out on this. But better news coming from Detroit is that Detroit has scrapped benefits for city pensioners and put them into the Obamacare or ACA exchange. So, I mean, it's just so fitting. The unions supported this guy, said he is the greatest thing since sliced bread. He's a savior. He's going to protect your union benefits. He's going to help you. And they create these healthcare exchanges, and then Detroit goes bankrupt. And what do? First thing they do is, you love Obama so much? Well, have some Obamacare, you retirees. You're going to love it. It's so good. And the interesting thing is, the city has scheduled in their filings $18 billion in liabilities. $6 billion of that $18 billion is healthcare benefits for retired city workers. It's a lot of money. And basically, the city's going to give $125 a month to the retirees and say, you know, that website called Healthcare.gov, we hear they have some great healthcare plans out there, and effective January 1, all you retired workers under the age of 65 will no longer receive full coverage from the state, and Here's $125. Go out there and you guys go and buy a health plan, buy a health care plan. And if it doesn't work, well, you better go find a healthcare exchange that does work. I mean, if that's not just dessert. And honestly, now, the employees, the retirees, are not raping the system. Now, the trustees gave out 13-month checks to all the retirees. They made improper payments. They did a lot of things wrong. Kwame Kilpatrick, total criminal. He's probably going to spend the rest of his life in jail, or a big chunk of it, until he gets pardoned by one of his buddies. A lot of things wrong here. He refinanced all the pension stuff and, further helped drive the city down the drain. But in fairness, it's not like New York. It's not like California, where these retirees are raping the system. Average retiree is getting $19,000 a year. They're not raping the system here, but the system is so corrupt and so inefficient. And the fact that they allowed Detroit to deteriorate and shrivel up into nothing, that's the reason why they're getting cut back here. But health benefits shouldn't have been part of the equation in the first place. In any state, in any city, any county in the country, giving them away free lifetime health benefits, wrong, should have been cut out. So the Detroit Free Press reported that the city estimates that these cuts will reduce coverage costs for retirees to $50 billion from around $170 million. So they're going to save $120 million a year. And the Department of Health and Human Services estimates that the average American will pay $328 a month for premium for health insurance plan on the exchanges before any subsidies. That's a lie. You know it, and I know it. In Michigan, a low-cost silver plan, it's going to be $271, $306 for the second lowest silver plan, and $222 for the lowest cost bronze plan. Retired workers, stuff's going to cost more, and this thing is epic fail. Forget about it. Not going to happen. And a lot of these people have moved out of Michigan. They're in Florida. They're in warmer places, double dipping. They're not just retired. They're working in a new career, getting a new income. So don't cry for them, Argentina. So basically, they tried to talk to Kevyn Orr, but of course, he's unavailable for comment. This guy, Steve Kreisberg, AFSCME, that's the union thugs out there, director of collective bargaining, says that the drop to $125 monthly stipend to cover healthcare costs isn't enough for retirees younger than 65. Well, Steve, welcome to the real world. He's upset because spousal and child coverage is being eliminated. Poor Steve. This will have a major impact, especially if they insured their spouses and children. Well, you know what, Steve? The taxpayers can't afford it anymore. Detroit's in shambles. If you hadn't noticed, you raped it all these years, and you encouraged the trustees of the pension plan to act irresponsibly. So this is what you get. You reaped what you sowed. And like I said, the workers weren't really at fault. They weren't getting a windfall, but the taxpayers shouldn't be responsible for paying for their spouses and for paying for their kids. There should be some responsibility someplace. Detroit is what it is, and there's really no way to turn this around without eliminating the very things that put it where it is. So this is a good first step, and let's start getting rid of all the regulations and laws that have helped to turn Detroit into the vast urban wasteland that it is, because God knows it needs all the help that it can get. Onto Obamacare, there's a lawsuit pending. Briefly summarize it because it's real complicated, but pretty much the law said that those states that didn't adopt or create a healthcare exchange and left it to the federal government, that there wouldn't be subsidies for people signing up on the healthcare exchange, specifically exempted them. The IRS, in their finite wisdom, and the HHS said, we don't agree with the law, and they created subsidies where none were provided by the government. The HHS is being sued, and so is the IRS, by an off-the-wall kind of lawsuit, and the government tried to get it tossed. The judge said, basically green-lighted the suit, and it's typical that the regulatory overreach goes on. Catherine Sebelius, I predict that shortly she's going to retire because she's going to have personal issues. She's going to want to spend a lot more time with her family, and we encourage her, spend more time with your family, Catherine, because Washington, you are pariah, you're persona non grata. You really need to get out of there. But the problem is they're not going to be able to find many people that want to take your place and be on the firing line of all these angry people. There's going to be tens of millions of them. This attorney, Sam Kasman, he looks like an okay guy, probably an ambulance chaser, but this is his chance. This is his 15 minutes. They're calling them these refusenic states. There's 34 of them or 36 of them, depending on how you count it. They shouldn't be getting any subsidies. And effectively, if he wins the case and these 36 states are exempt from the Obamacare mandates, you will see a massive movement of jobs and companies from the states with exchanges to those 36 states, because there'll be a major savings and it's going to be good. Hey, got lots more to talk about up next on the financialsurvivalnetwork.com. You know who I am. I'm Kerry Lutz, 1230 WBZT. Hi, it's Kerry Lutz. I recently decided to move my retirement account into physical precious metals to hedge against the coming times. If you want to move an existing retirement account into physical precious metals that you can hold in your hand tax-free, there's no company that can do it more quickly and efficiently than Regal Assets. It took them just 24 hours to open my new IRA account, and all I had to do was fill out one simple form. The best part is that Regal Assets does all the work for you. They cover the setup and administrative costs for 2013. If you're interested in making the same move I did, call 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620. That's 855-678-6620, or visit them at regalassets.com. You'll be glad you did, and tell them Kerry sent you. And we're back. Kerry Lutz, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Don't forget, go sign up and sign up on jasonhartman.com/Lutz. Jason, HARTMAN.com/LUTZ, because if you go there, you'll get a free e-copy of my book, Forget Wall Street, Go for the Gold and Silver Too. And don't forget, I was one of the few people 6 months ago telling you what was going to happen with Obamacare. What I said was going to happen with these websites is exactly what did happen. I said the insurance companies wouldn't be getting the data. You wouldn't know if you had insurance or not. And like I said in the newsletter this week, if it was a rational, normal administration, if it cared about the future of the country, the well-being of you, of the citizens, they would have scrapped this thing or delayed it indefinitely till they fixed this thing, but they didn't. So sign up, go get the free book. I've got predictions in there about what's going to happen to the economy, what's going to happen to the monetary system. I'm not unique in that. There's a lot of people out there who've got similar predictions, but I've got my own particular spin on it. You want to read about it, jasonhartman.com/LUTZ. Get the book for free. And Jason's a great guy. You don't know when this collapse is going to happen. If you own physical items, physical assets, gold, silver, oil, real estate, you're going to come out much better than if you own paper. That much is for certain. Go there, get the free book. Again, jasonhartman.com/LUTZ. So, getting back to this Obamacare stuff, they knew it was going to fail, and they did it anyway. Now, look, the worst Microsoft product ever, in my estimation, was Vista. But the thing still worked. It just worked really bad, but it worked. And actually, if you loaded it onto a Mac, it worked perfectly, almost as good as Windows 7. And this thing, Healthcare.gov, didn't work. It never worked. And in fact, now, as one expert said, it's on effectively a shutdown. You can't sign up. They don't want you signing up because if they allowed the front end to work, on the back end, they'd have hundreds of thousands of people who they have these 834 files. They've been around. They're like a 1974 Ford pickup, as standard as could be. And for some reason, the system can't generate those files and send them to the insurance companies. And then when the insurance companies get them, they're supposed to generate a check file, goes back to healthcare.gov to let them know that they've effectively imported those files and everything is working fine. Can't do that. Can't do any of that stuff. The system is a fail. And there's so many things going on here. The president gets on and doesn't say, hey, we screwed up. It's my fault. The buck stops here. He said the buck stops with the programmers. I'm upset. You're upset. Call 1-800 healthcare.gov, which that promptly fails, and that number sends you to healthcare.gov. I mean, what is going on here? We have no system of checks and balances any longer because Congress doesn't do its job. The courts are in the pocket. The courts don't do anything. It's a bunch of losers. I mean, this system is so out of hand that you got to wonder where it's going to crash. I mean, everything is just a complete shambles. And they knew this thing wasn't going to work, and yet they release it. In the private sector, you sell a product, you release a site that you know isn't going to work. You know what you're guilty of? You're guilty of a crime called fraud, because you induce people to come to your site expecting a benefit, all right, expecting to be able to buy a product that you know you aren't going to be able to sell them. That's fraud. Now here, maybe the government's not reaping a direct benefit, but you're fraudulently inducing people to come to this site that doesn't work. That's fraud, all right? It's fraudulent. Now maybe it's not a crime because you're not taking their money, but you're certainly dashing their hopes. You're making them, you're really pumping up their expectations, and you're not delivering. All right? It's just plain lying to the public. When you tell them on October 1, you can go to this site and shop for insurance, and then you know without a doubt that it won't work, that it's going to crash because just 3 weeks before, under light load testing, the thing failed. I call that lying. I call that fraud. What do you call it? And if you had an experience with this stupid site, please write to me at kl@kerrylutz.com, KLKERRYLUTZ.com. Love to hear some of your experiences. You've heard about mine. I mean, it's just, now the media is turning on them and saying, what are you guys doing here? You can't do anything right. This guy, Ezra Klein, he's a blogger for the Washington Post, a liberal rag that just is totally in the pocket of the administration. Even he is saying that this thing is a fraud and it really can never work. And there's an article here on NPR, of all places, the communist airwaves, and they're saying they don't have very long to fix this. And, oh, by the way, do you know how many people got enrolled successfully through the healthcare site, healthcare.gov, in North Dakota's Blue Cross site? They said what they were. They said the number 2 days ago, And the government had told all the insurance companies, do not say a word to anybody. Don't tell them the number you've enrolled. Well, they did anyway. They said, screw you. 20. That was the number that got successfully enrolled in Blue Cross through Obamacare in North Dakota. Now, granted, there aren't many people in North Dakota. Probably there's a good reason for that, although they've got a lot of oil coming out and a lot of jobs. And, you know, the weather sucks there. Let's face it. It's not the place that you perhaps want to vacation, but if you want to get a good paying job and you're willing to put up with 30, 40 degree below zero temperatures in the winter, good place to go. Anyway, 20 people. I think there's around 1 million people in North Dakota. So 20 out of probably 100,000 potential signups or 50,000. Lowest unemployment rate, I think, in the nation, under 4%. So 20 people, maybe there's, tens of thousands that potentially could have signed up. Not bad, right? It's probably one of the higher percentage rates in the country. But how do only 20 people sign up? So here's the thing. They wanted to get 7 million enrollees the first year. They say they've got 500,000 people that have completed an application, probably 10,000 people who've actually completed the application and are going to get insurance. If the insurance company knew who these people were and got them, maybe there's, a couple 100,000 people they've gotten into Medicaid, the expanded program. But none of this is going to end well. I thought that they were never going to go ahead with this once they knew that the computer system wasn't going to work, but they've gone ahead with it anyway. I'm really kind of shocked by it, but I guess I shouldn't be. They just don't really care. I mean, you got to wonder what their motivation is for pursuing a failed system when they know it's failed. Why are they doing it? That's the question you need to be asking. What is the motivation to pursue chaos? Because if they don't fix this thing, which is highly unlikely, and look, I told you my background. I've been working with computers since, I hate to say it, 1975. I'm not an expert in that I can't go in and set up a website from scratch and write code. Not a coder, not a programmer, but I put together pretty complicated systems, written specs. I know what's involved in it. And let me tell you, to go into somebody else's mess when there's anywhere from 5 to 500 million lines of code, depending upon who you talk to, you just don't fix that thing in a week, in a month, or probably even in 6 months. And generally, when you have a system that doesn't work like this one, the best possible alternative is to scrap it and start over, because you can't just have people who don't know the system jump in there and say, oh, here's what we need to do, and just read the code and fix it. Doesn't work that way. There's testing that needs to be done. There's assessment. You need to evaluate exactly the way that system's working. And then you've got the half a dozen other federal systems that this thing taps into, including the IRS, immigration, Medicare, Medicaid, state systems. I think it goes into food stamps too. I was amazed to hear it even went into the Peace Corps. What the heck does Obamacare need to look at the Peace Corps for? And probably needs to go to the NSA, although they're probably hacked into it already. I mean, it needs to go into many systems. Immigration, like I said, many systems to figure out these benefits. And probably the best thing is it shouldn't be going into those systems real time. It should allow you file your application, and then it'll say, we're evaluating your application. We'll send you an email when your application is ready for you to look at and decide your options. That would have been the proper way to do it, but they didn't consult me. My price tag's too high for them. They can't afford me. I can assure you of that. But this is the way the government does things. This is why the country's on the verge of collapse. This is why there's 50 million people on food stamps, give or take 1 million. And this is why the administration wants more people on food stamps. 82 million people on Medicaid right now, but they're not happy with that. They want more. 49% of the country is getting some type of a benefit, some type of check. So much for self-reliance. The government takes the money in and they give the money out. They give out the goodies. And this is why the country's going down the tubes. Thank you very much, Obamacare. Can't get enough of you. And maybe one day my grandchildren will be able to get to reap the benefits of Obamacare. But for the next 6 months, ain't going to happen. This is Kerry Lutz. Been another Triple Lutz report. Signing off. Hey, if you're a coffee connoisseur like me, you need to try an amazing new roaster out of L.A., Tonks Coffee. These guys are fanatical about delivering the best beans in the world. They source directly from the growers, roast it, and ship it to you within 24 hours, so it's the most fresh coffee you've ever tasted. Every 2 weeks, you get a new batch of incredible beans roasted to perfection. If you're hitting a cafe most mornings, this is a much better and more economical way to get great coffee. Tonks is by subscription only, and they're offering you a free sample. Use the URL tonks.org/liberty. That's TONX.org/liberty. Get some for yourself or send it to someone you know who appreciates the finer things. Tonks.org/liberty. Again, TONX.org/liberty.
The Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.